All right, y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Fit and Professional Podcast. I'm your host, Breeze, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Brittany Powell, a good friend of mine, and she definitely embodies what it means to be fit and professional. So I'm super excited to have her on and share a little bit about her story. So let's get into it. How you feeling, Britt?
I feel amazing. First, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I love everything you've been doing with Fit and Professional, so I'm happy to be here and get into the convo.
Yeah, now you've been a FP supporter. We were talking about it from day one. I definitely appreciate your support, going above and beyond and make extra content for me and showing off the gear like it's yours. So I definitely appreciate that. And yeah, I'm just honored to have you on the show as well. Yeah.
I'm here for that. I feel like too often people want to go after like these famous people or things like that and don't support the people they know and that, that you watch grind. So I'm grateful to be able to support somebody that I could watch you doing the work every single day.
Yeah, no, that's funny to hear you say that because that was kind of like, so when the Fit and Professional started, it was going to be the podcast, but we kind of brought it on later. But I was such in the pursuit being a content creator, trying to be like a part of like the bigger brands and try to get a deal and be an ambassador. And I was just like, you know what? Like if I'm going hard for all these people, I'm gonna go hard for myself. So that was like a full circle hearing you say that. So, but yeah, we'll get into it. Fit and professional, self-explanatory. I want to learn a little bit more. I know a little bit about your fitness background. I want to tell the people like, where did your fitness journey begin? Like, tell me a little bit about your fitness side of things.
So I'm an athlete. I ran track for most of my life. I was a dancer before that, so that's where it really started. But in middle school, my mom, she was like, I can't pay for dance and gymnastics anymore, things like that. And I'm Jamaican, so my family, we always rooted for and supported track.
So it's in the blood.
It's in the blood.
Oh, it's in the blood.
I always liked track, but I was never like a track athlete. Like I didn't go out and was like, I wasn't running since I was like 5 or 6.
Right.
But in middle school, spring track, that was my first time ever stepping foot on the track. And that was it. It was over. I had my first meet. I was up there, like, really, really, really competitive. And then after that, I started to gain a love for it. And the rest was literally history. So I went to Tally Middle School here in Delaware.
Okay.
I was the short sprinter. I did like the 200, 100, that type of thing. Then when I transitioned into high school, that's actually when my 9th grade year was my last year of dance, and I fully committed to running.
Okay.
And after my first indoor season, I started AAU track, which is like I forget what AAU stands for, but it's like
Amateur Athletic Union?
Yes, the Amateur Athletic Union. So outside of just high school track, I started running full-time year-round. And the stadium that we're sitting in right now is actually where I had my first AAU team. So we're right back, full circle. You talking about full circle moments.
Yeah.
This is a full circle moment for me. And my first day of practice ever, you're gonna laugh at this because we come here for Run Club too.
Right.
You know how we go to Brandywine Park?
Yeah.
He had us do a long run, my first day ever. And so we started here, we did the warm up. He was like, all right, we're going out into the city, and we did a long run. I did not come back for 3 months. I said, that's not what I signed up for.
You said, I'm just doing short sprints. I ain't with all that distance.
I'm trying to be like, 1, 2 out.
Right.
But now at Run Club, we run the long distances all the time.
So another full circle.
Full circle. But yeah, I ran in high school. I transitioned into being a 400-meter runner and a long and triple jumper.
Okay.
I did that for 4 years. I ended up getting school records in all the long jump and the triple jump, and one other thing, I think it was the 200. I was the state champions in the state of Delaware for triple jump. I got that my senior year. I went off, I was a D1 athlete. I ran track in college as well. In college though, it's a little different because when you train for mid-sprint, which is what the 400 is, versus when you train for jumping, which is more explosive, they typically don't train both of those things together, so I kind of had to choose one. So I went the jumping route.
Okay.
And so I jumped all 4 years of college. I was competitive. I was in the Patriot League. I won Patriot League 1 year, and I had the school record as well in the long and triple jump. I think the long jump is indoor. The triple jump was outdoor. It was like almost 40 feet. And it's all God, for real. Yeah.
Now, you're not about to just peruse over it all casually. She's like, yeah, I had these records, school records and things like that at the high school and college level.
Yeah.
So that was something new that I learned recently that, I knew you, ran in college, but I never knew the details of it. And I know some friends that played basketball at the same school as you as well. In the Patriot League, that's really competitive. Yeah. Any Division I, any college athlete is competitive, but you were at the high level. So I know that took a lot of dedication. I played Division I basketball as well, as you know. So what was that transition like? So you said in college, you had to choose between sprinting and jumping. Was that a tough decision to make? How did you decide which one you wanted to do?
It was kind of tough. I think in the terms of like, I really love the 400. If anybody knows anything about the 400 meter, that takes like mind, body, soul.
Yeah.
Like you're fully sprinting
so
for
that's
a
one time around.
lap
Around.
And so by the time you get off the 300, your body's dead. You really have to take into your brain. But also as a sprinter, you have time to catch people, right? So when you're thinking about competing, that was like my baby.
Right.
But I also really loved long and triple jump, and I was performing better in terms of like I was competitive in the 400, but in terms of the numbers I was hitting, it was like nationally competitive. So we went that route.
So you different. Yeah, that's dope. That just makes me happy just to learn a little bit more about, but that makes sense, like just knowing you and your work ethic and things like that, knowing the dedication you had in that field and things of that nature. So in high school, I heard you say briefly that you had to make that decision to stop dance and go into that. Was that a tough decision? Like, do you miss dance? Do you still do it at all in like, your life now?
I don't dance much anymore. I think that it wasn't a decision that I necessarily had. I think for my background and my lifestyle, my mom couldn't really afford to continue to pay for those things. So it's kind of just like, okay, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
And then in terms of just like transportation and things like that, it became challenging. And with track, I was practicing at school, I was doing it at school, and then when I stepped into the track community, I gained a lot of parent figures in terms of like specifically father figures who were like, I'm gonna come get you, you're not gonna miss this, like here, that type of thing. So it became easier, like more feasible. And I think that was God too, because I think that I had a real talent in the track world that I wouldn't have discovered if I was still focused on
if you didn't go all the way in it. Yeah, no, that's really dope. Having a village is half the battle. Like raising a kid, just any endeavor that you want to do, business, like you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So I definitely, having those father figures, I had similar things. Not having my dad around, my coaches were like kind of like father figures, so I can definitely resonate. And I'm learning more about you. We have a lot in common in that regard. When it comes to being a not professional athlete, a Division I athlete, right? What was that? I know it from my perspective, but I don't know from the track perspective, but I'm pretty sure it's similar. What was that day to day and out like? Keeping your grades up and also trying to perform and break records.
Listen, I think that when we think about the brand fit and professional, I think about how a lot of ways being an athlete prepared me to be like a high functioning, successful person in general. I think we learn discipline, we learn sacrifice, we learn how to really make decisions and stand by them. We learn so many things as an athlete, especially as a D1 athlete, that I think carries over into my life. So when I think back into, for an example, I could think back into when it came to in college, you want to go out, you want to have a good time, you want to see everything. But as an athlete, you have to prioritize. So when people were starting to go out on Thursday nights, like, no, I had practice on Friday. And not only that, but I had like a 5 a.m. lift.
Yeah.
And then I have to practice in the evening, and then I have class, and then we had like a team dinner. So it was just like the time frame that I had was different than the time frame of a lot of people around me, and I had to work to learn how to live within that.
Yeah.
But that really built discipline, and it built also like not having like FOMO when you think about what you're working towards. I think another thing that I hit on, a lot of people that I went to college around the same time as, when we think about like how the decisions and choices that you made changed in your performance. So I might have been like, I was competitive, but there were people out there that were running faster than me, jumping further than me. But when we got to college and we had all the options in the world, it then became like, well, who's really doing the work? And as an athlete, like the proof is always in the pudding.
Yeah.
So you can't cheat yourself. Like you can't cheat the system. There's no cheating system, especially with track. Like your body is your tool. There's no extra ball. There's no extra nothing. Like your body is the tool. And so I think that discipline really I learned in college.
Yeah. No, you made a great point, especially with track and like any individual sport. Like you on a team, but when you're out there, it's just you.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're, like for me playing basketball, like if I missed a shot, my big man might be able to get the rebound and we got a second opportunity. For y'all, it's like, y'all train so much for like maybe how long was the average, like 400 for like a good time?
Like in high school, like a 58.
Like a 58, you know what I mean? You train all those hours just for less than a minute.
58 seconds, less than a minute,
You know what I mean? So when I'm watching Olympics, that gives me that too. I'm just like, they train for 4 years, well, their whole life, but you got to wait 4 years just to perform for 9 seconds, especially for the short distances. You know what I mean? So that proper preparation definitely is important, and that comes back down to the sacrifices and things like that. Like, how bad do you want it?
Yes.
And you said it as well. Like, you can't cheat it. Like, no matter what you do. Like, for me with real estate, if I don't make my calls, I don't do my follow-ups, I'm not gonna close deals. If I don't work out, then it's gonna show. You know what I mean? So, you definitely hit it right on. And that transition, talking about in your professional life, it was a great segue.
Yeah.
I know you do multiple things. I'm going to turn it over to you because I know, you do the read out loud.
Yeah, read and represent.
Read and represent. You do stuff for Black educators.
Yes.
You're a tutor, I just learned. You're a PhD student.
Yes.
All right, I'll turn it over to you. What else am I missing?
Listen, you got all the major things. You got all the major things.
Yeah.
I always say, like, I'm an educator by passion and choice. So all the things in that realm, from professional development, teaching, tutoring. I'm a full-time PhD student right now. That needs to be my focus.
Shout out to that.
So I can graduate, because prayerfully that'll be happening this year. So yeah, Read and Represent is my baby. I'm always looking for volunteers. I expect to see you come volunteer.
I would say, I remember you told me about it. So, Read and Represent, what is that? What's your initiative with that?
Yeah, so Read and Represent, we're basically looking to instill joy and a love for reading in Black students. In the state of Delaware, less than 28% of students are on grade level when it comes to reading, and it's even lower than that for Black students. And as a Black student and as a teacher in predominantly Black spaces, I just know how it is important that literacy is the root and start of everything.
Right.
And so we don't want to just put it down and push it down the throats of students, which is like, oh, you need to read, but we want to make sure it's fun, joyful, and it leads to educational change.
Right.
So representation is key. So the books that we choose for Read and Represent centers main characters of color, our volunteers, our young professionals of color, also anybody of color that wants to come out and read to the babies for real. And that's a start. So we're blessed to be in 2 schools this year. We have some pop-ups at other schools, especially during Black History Month. But I'm excited, and I'm always looking for people to come join the charge.
Awesome. No, I'll definitely send me the details. I definitely would love to do that. I love going back into the schools and, like you said, representation, seeing somebody that looks like you, that's not just an athlete, that's doing multiple things, and you can see what's possible out there, especially in our community. I feel like, but I feel like our generation is doing more of that. I'm seeing it, you know what I mean? I'm seeing more fathers present and happy about it. You got a Fatherhood podcast. One of my friends has one of those. It's dope just seeing our community kind of evolve, and I think we have a long way to go, but starting to see people of our age and generation kind of take that initiative is super dope.
We were just talking about how we're the new adults, right?
No, that's really crazy. Like,
it's crazy. It's mind-blowing, but I like to see what we're doing with the charge, right?
Yeah.
Because so many times they say, be the person that you wish you had. And so many of us are doing that now. And I love to do that, so I love to see it as well.
Yeah. No, that's dope. You doing that, and we're not going. I forgot you're an author as well.
Yes.
So when you said books, I thought about it. I'm like, yo, Britt really do a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Like, how do you have the energy to do all these things? Like, I heard you mention earlier talking about some of the stuff you learned in college. How do you feel that translates into your professional life now?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I have to give it all to God, because sometimes I am even just like how, what, when, but God really, really, really carries me through. So I would say that that's the biggest thing, like having faith, giving it all to God and letting Him lead the way, and trying to stay disciplined in that. Like, when you think about faith and God and how He leads by example, we talk about discernment, we talk about the choices you make, and He led and show us all of that. But then also it's this mindset and just like this, what I've learned throughout my whole life. I've always done a lot, my whole entire life, like balancing school and I was in the IB program, and then being in class government, and then, being an athlete. And specifically in college, we talk about that. Discipline goes a long way, sacrifice goes a long way, and planning for me. Like, I'm a calendar girly. I know you like Google Calendar too.
Yes.
But my Google Calendar, I have to put everything in there. I have to plan it out. And then the next step from that is execution, which is the harder part, in my opinion. But I think that by going through that and then having moments of just like, oh, that worked, and being able to see the proof in the pudding, like, that keeps you motivated. Too.
No, that's a big thing. Like, I heard someone say, like, motivation, like, you shouldn't like strive for motivation, because motivation comes and goes, but like the habits and the discipline, like, we see all these motivational clips and podcasts and things like that. Like, and of course I want Fit Professional to inspire and motivate people in certain aspects, but it comes down to, like, no matter what you do, it's the consistency. We know the answer. Like, if you have the plan, you can write all these things down, but executing is the thing. So you can have all the dreams in the world, but if you don't execute on them, they're never going to become a reality.
That's,
you know what I mean?
So real. And I think, just to piggyback off that, even though it's not fully related, but it's kind of related, is this idea of transparency, right? And so we kind of talked about a little bit earlier about how the proof is in the pudding. You can't cheat the system. And I think that's the same thing when we talk about, like, the transparency and, like, what are you doing? Where's your discipline? Because at the end of the day, your outcomes, your execution isn't going to work if you're not putting in the work. And so, for a weird example, I hate running. Like, I'm not a fan of running. Like, but I think that everything that it does for my mind, body, and soul, like, it makes me feel so good, right? And then not only that, you can see that it's worth it. So when you do it, even when you don't want to, those are the most rewarding days. And then when you continue to do it when you don't want to, when you need to, you are able to. So I even think about as an athlete, like the times where we pull out like the fastest times or like, you know, are able to stay, I don't know how basketball works, but able to stay on the court the longest or whatever the case may be, get the shots up. It's not because you were clutch in that moment. It's all the shots that you took when nobody was looking.
You wasn't with me shooting in the gym.
You wasn't with me shooting in the gym. It's like, you know how many 400s, how many repeat 200s I had to do to be able to pull that 400 out in the last? Well, you know, just little stuff like
preparation.
that.
The stuff they don't see, a lot goes unnoticed. Social media makes it tough because it's an instant microwave gratification. Society as a whole, like we all struggle with it. You go in there and be like, dang, how'd they get there? But we don't see all the hours, the time, the years that they put into their craft, and now they're getting a reward for it. Like when I close a house, I may have been working with that client a year ago, but now I'm getting the so-and-so glory for it, you know what I mean? Or training for a marathon, what I'm doing now, right? I can't just wake up one day and just say, I'm running 26.2 miles. My body didn't earn it, or I don't even deserve to run that yet. My body will shut down if I try to just get up and do it, you know what I mean? But the person that you become on that pursuit of that goal, it comes down to what you want. I know that that's my goal, that 26.2. So I know I can't miss a 14-mile run on the weekday. I may not be able to go out drinking or partying with the friends on Thursday if I got a long run on Saturday. You know what I mean? So it's all about what you want, like, you know, and the proof is in the pudding. So we're gonna see if I was prepared
when you get
when
out
marathon weekend
to run that 32 miles.
You
like,
mean?
Breeze, you looking kind of slew at 5 miles. Was you really
Listen,
running? And I think social media does that so much too, because people can edit things so much. They have the clips, they have the short things. But it's really like, if we were to go, like in real life, what are you doing? Like if we were gonna go right now, like, are you able to show that you're able to do that? And I think people speed past things because they're able to make things look pretty. But it's like, okay, did you actually do the work to make you as valuable as what you're showing? What you're
showing, And you can get away with that for so long. You know what I mean? There is a such thing as fake it till you make it. And that's the beauty of social media. Like if you're starting something out, and that's why I'm an advocate when I'm talking to my team, with my real estate team and things like that. Like don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And be like, I'm not doing as many deals yet. Well, it don't matter. Like just show that people see your consistency through that. Like I hear people tell me all the time, like, man, you post all the time. You know what I mean? They don't know. I feel like you closing the house every day. I'm not closing the house every day, but you see my face every day. So now when they're ready to buy or sell or refer, I want to be that first person top of mind. You know what I mean?
Listen,
just put yourself out there.
When it comes to branding and stuff like that, I feel like you're really, really, really like that guy when it comes to really being, I feel like real estate, fitness, things like that. You really master like, and I know it's still a work in progress, but you really mastered that idea of just like, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to hit the plate as many times as I have to. So when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, I know where to go. Like real estate breeze, fit and professional. Like it's like back and back to back. So I would say that's something I do admire.
I appreciate that. It just comes down to consistency, and like I started content maybe in 2018, just like dabbling in it. And I look back, I'm like, dang, I did put in a lot of hours. And one of my cousins told me something that really resonated with me. She was just like, she said, the thing I love about what you do the most when you're on camera is that you're like your own Toastmasters class, like Toastmasters, like, you know, public speaking class. So you're constantly in front of the camera practicing, and you don't realize that you're getting reps in, just like you said, shooting in the gym, all the 100 and 200, 400 sprints that you were doing. So now on camera, people may see it like, oh, dang, they're just naturals. But even that takes man hours, you know, man or woman hours, you know what I mean? So, you know, everything takes work.
Inclusivity,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
But yeah, I think that also I'm a theme person. I feel like two of the themes that we've talked about so much is like, what are you doing behind the scenes? Like, what are the things that you are doing day in and day out to make sure that you prepare for that moment? And all of those hours that no one sees, all those hours where you're honing your craft makes a huge difference.
Right.
So I think that's one. And then also the proof is in the pudding. You're not going to be able to show up and show out if you haven't put in the work before.
Yeah, that's a fact. I wanted to talk about this earlier, but I like the conversation. I just let it flow. We talked about it before, being athletes, that transition from being a full-time athlete to professional career, you know, how was that transition? Do you have any like stories or challenges that, you know, coming out of that and going into the professional world? Like, how was your transition?
I think that's a good, really, really good question. I think that sometimes like, everything slows down. I feel like sometimes when you're known, like when you have this one thing that you've been focused on for years and years and years, and you've been devoting your life towards it, right? And then all of a sudden everything stops. No one prepares you for the silence that comes after. Like no one prepares you for like, I'm getting up and it's like, I don't have practice, I don't have this, I don't have that. Where do I go? What do I do with myself? And also I feel like sometimes, unfortunately, we connect ourselves, like it becomes a part of who we are to a point where it's like, I feel like I'm missing something afterwards. And so I definitely think that I experienced that a little bit, where it was kind of just like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And I think an example of me seeing it hindsight is through my nephew. So my nephew, he played football for years, and he loved football, and he didn't play his freshman year of college.
Okay.
And he literally went through a little bit of a depression. And it was like, oh my goodness, like, what do I get to do? And like, not for nothing, like, yes, life has to transition, things have to move on, but we don't get prepared for that. So I will say that was a challenge.
Yeah. No, that conversation is so, I think it's so needed, and more people need to talk about it. Everybody, you know, from a kid, you may be raised up to be the star football player, basketball, track star, but nobody talks about that transition, because the small percentage of people that make it pro, like it's super small, you know, like in every different sport, going to the Olympics, it's a small people,
it's
but
a very small percentage.
People don't talk about that mental switch, and it doesn't just like, oh, I'm in the real world now, I'm this professional person sitting at a cubicle. That's where my fitness journey, like outside of basketball, started, because I was working for the government at the time. Really great job. I was blessed to have it. I did an internship the summer going into senior year. I just knew I had to have a plan just in case, you know. You know what I mean? So I kind of made that executive decision early to be like, you know what, I had a son too. I have a son, but at that time he was little. I made the executive decision and said, you know what, I got to start working. I had so many friends that were older than me. Some of the guys I look up to were still trying to pursue that professional overseas or NBA life, and they didn't really have anything to show for it. You know what I mean? But I get it, because it's like this, I only got one plan, you know what I mean? But that transition and sitting at that cubicle, I went into that same depression that you mentioned. Like, I looked at myself in the mirror, I gained so much weight, like I wasn't working out. I just didn't like the person I was looking at. So I was like, I had to make a change and find my new purpose. Like, that was that chapter. Now let's see what the next chapter is like. And I think, you know, that conversation definitely has to be had, because a lot of people go through life never finding that purpose. You know what I mean? And some people still are going through that depression, and they turn to drugs and things like that, which is, I'm so thankful for that. Fitness gave me that, you know, that drive, and gave me that sense of, like, you know, stress reliever like basketball did, you know what I mean? Because it's tough, and I still have moments when I miss it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was about to say, and I think one thing that I used to wish, like right after, is I wish I played a sport that you would pick up and play. So like, I feel like right after college, like people would be like, oh, I'm gonna go play pickup basketball. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Or like, oh, I'm joining the local soccer league. Like, back then, run clubs weren't really a thing.
It wasn't a thing,
And it was like, if you're a runner, you're running like miles on miles on miles on miles, and that wasn't my thing either. So like, even now recently that we're back with On Pace Run Club, I've really enjoyed that, and it's brought back a light and for me for just athleticism and fitness that I really, really enjoy, and didn't even know that I was missing to the degree that I have been missing it. So I think that's huge. And I think the other thing too is, like, I wish that, like, when we were athletes, someone was teaching us that you're learning so many skill sets right now that apply to every area of your life, right? And so there's so many, and I don't know, somebody should do a study on this if there's not. There's so many successful people, like in other realms, like real estate, like all these other places. And when you sit down and have a conversation with, many of them were athletes. And I'm like, what is the connection there, right? Because I think for myself, in terms of like my entrepreneurship life or like my school life, I have a sense of delusion. Like, I think I could literally do anything. I think I could literally
you gotta have that confidence,
do
like
anything. And I think that it started being an athlete. It started with, like, when I got on that line, thinking in my brain, like, I'm about to do this. I'm really about to do this. I'm that girl, for real.
No, that's a fact. A lot of people you hear that were former athletes. Presidents were former athletes and things. You see with Barack Obama, like, he could hoop. You know what I mean? But it makes sense though, because just think about, like, the team skills, the adversity that you have to face when, like, for me, I'm talking about basketball, but like, it's a team sport. You may not like your teammates every day, you know what I mean? But when y'all go on that court, y'all gotta be brothers. You know what I mean? You gotta learn, you know, soft skills as well. Like, you may not always get your way, like, oh, why coach getting on me? You know what I mean? You may not like your boss, but are you gonna just lash out them and get fired? If I snap on my coach, I'm gonna stay on the bench. So with certain things, teaching you patience, delayed gratification, so many, it's a whole long list. That's gonna be its own episode, you know what I mean? I think that's so major. And I think, like, this idea of, like, overcoming, but then also having faith in yourself and your abilities. Because, like, you could be on a basketball team, and I don't know that much about basketball, but I'm trying to, but, you know, they have to pick who's going to be playing. Right. They have to pick who's going to be in the, you know, and it's like,
are you going to get off the bench or you're not going to get off the bench?
Right.
You have to believe first that you can get off the bench. And when you do get off the bench, you can't be thinking about the 4 minutes before when you wasn't on the bench. Like, you really have to be ready to perform. So, like, you really have to be your own biggest fan to, you know, go after. And I think that applies to so much of life. Like, you have to believe that you can do things to do them.
Belief is, that's one of the biggest things. Just believing you can do it, not being afraid to step out on faith. Like, I've tried many in the entrepreneurship world, just like you, having multiple things going on, not being afraid to try and start from ground zero, you know what I mean? But like, you got to have that belief first, like, I can do this, you know what I mean? And when it comes to the spiritual, I don't know what everyone's spirituality is, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that's a fact. Like, I really do wake up like, and I know people be talking to me like, what you doing, Breeze? You do everything. Like, because like, why not? When I'm on this earth, like, I want to like live full. And then when I walk across that threshold, I want God to be like, well done. I want to exceed the expectations that he set out for me on this earth. You know what I mean? And we can do it. It don't matter how old you are, how young you are. If you just start, it's going to take time, but just keep going and just don't be afraid to try.
Don't be afraid to try. Don't give up. Like, you have to keep going. I think, yes. And it's such a blessing to really know that you're walking in your purpose and knowing that God put something on your heart. And then it's also so fulfilling to know that when you're doing for God, he's going to open every door that people think are closed. Like, you could be at the door like, dang, it's locked. And as soon as you touch it, it opens. And that's not you, that's God. So I think that's major.
Or understanding why that door was closed. Oh, I see why. And later on, getting that understanding. But no, that's super dope. Yeah, I think when it comes to, you know, we talked about run club and things like that. Now, what is your track like? Do you still like, because you were doing sprint, but now you do long distance. What's been your journey like, you know, running as an adult and in your professional career?
So when I go out by myself, like even when I was working out by myself, I always gravitate towards shorter things. So we have Glasgow Park close to where I live. I'm gonna do a couple hills, I'm gonna stretch, I'm gonna leave it at that. But through Run Club, I have started running further distances. I'm trying to get ready to run a 5K. I'm trying to get more into distance, but the thing I love about our Run Club is that we have our track days. So, you know, you might get a 200, you might get a 300. We have hills coming up.
Shout out
to
Own Pace.
Shout out to Own Pace Track Club. I'm looking like, what you looking at?
Right, oh yeah, I got this camera. Yeah, no, that's dope.
But yeah, and so I think one thing that I really enjoy, I did Orange Theory for a while. And I thought that was a good burst and transition for me because I had a coach telling me what to do. And like I had some running, I had some, you know, working out, like it was a mixture of things and it was like all within an hour. So those are some things, but now I'm really, really back into running. I'm trying to do the running challenges, it's like a mile a day or like, you know, something like that, just to keep myself active. And yeah.
That's dope. No, I love it. Your energy out here is always felt when we have Own Pace Run Club as one of the, we're both captains. I was like, hold up, you a captain too. So no, it's really dope. And what I really like about Own Pace, the name in itself, because there's people at their own pace, all different fitness levels, but we're all showing up. And that accountability, you said something that was really important, having a coach. That's something from sports that I really admire. Like those coaches, like you learn so much from them. You love them, you hate them some days, but in the real world, having a coach in every aspect, having a coach like having a real estate coach, that changed my whole trajectory of my career. Having a coach with fitness, like even though I train people at times, having somebody train me, you know what I mean? Or learning a different discipline or something like that, you know, I think that's really big.
I agree.
And it never stops.
I agree, it never stops. I think back to my coaches, and I love them all so much, but like you said, sometimes, I remember my first time going back to my track experiences, breaking 60 minutes as a girl in like high school track is a big deal.
For 400. Okay.
So breaking 60 seconds
60
for a girl
seconds, okay.
in high school track is like a huge deal. Like most girls are not going to do that. And I remember my first time ever breaking 60, like I ran maybe like a 59 something, 58 something like that. And I was hyped. I was like, oh yeah, I did it. I walked over to my coach. He was not excited. He was like, you were not tired when you finished the race. I was like, what do you mean? Did you see the time? Did you see the time though? He was like, you ran over here after you were done your 400. If you left it all on the track, then you would have run faster, but then you would have done to your best of your abilities, right? And so like that moment like was such a teachable moment for me because it's like you could put yourself towards the standards of the world, the standards of other people, but like you need people around you that's gonna be like, you need to do the best that you can do. And I'm not gonna be shouting and praising until you do the best version of yourself. And I think sometimes when we think about like gravitating into different areas of the world, like it's so important to seek out mentors, seek out mentorship, seek out and be around people who are doing better than you, who have something to pour into you, that is willing to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a huge difference maker in your success level.
Yeah. You're a product of your environment,
Yeah.
whether it's negative or positive. So you definitely got to surround yourself with people. And I'll do one last anecdote because you just made me think of something. When you did that and you were looking for that validation from the coach, like, yeah, I did it. I remember senior year at college, and we were struggling a little bit. I was like the second leading scorer that year. My roommate Zeke, shout out to my boy, all-time leading scorer at our school. This dude's just different. But he went down. He had a wrist injury, so I had to step up and just really start like carrying a little bit more load. And we had a conference game. I scored 38 points. Right, that was my career high. And my coach, I always thought that he had like a disdain for me because like I was that low maintenance kid. He didn't always like, oh yeah, good job, Bree, good job, Sabri, da 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 da. And I always was seeking that. And I understand where it comes from, like my dad and stuff like that. Like I always wanted that validation. But they had the post game interview, and the reporter was like, basically giving him an alley-oop to kind of like just really like give me that validation. Like, yeah, talk about Sabri now. And he didn't.
Oh wow.
And he kind of just like, yeah, that was cool, but it kind of went to something else. In that moment, I was so mad. I called my mom, like, I told you he don't like me, da 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 da. And mind you, I love my coach. He sends me a text message every morning, and I didn't understand in that moment. But we had some conversations, and I kind of talked to him about how I felt and things like that. And he kind of just told me that like he didn't think I needed that. He knew he had to coach me a different way. You know what I mean? And that taught me a lot of patience. That taught me to just be like, you know what? I don't need his validation. I know what I did, but he knew that I could do more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that kind of.
Yeah, and I think, not that we're going to start going back and forth now,
Yeah.
but I do think that one thing that reminded me of is I had a coach, Holmes, coach in high school, where with the girls, he was always so patient. Like they wanted to do anything they wanted to do. He was like, they got to choose what they wanted to run, wherever the case may be. And I remember being upset about it too.
Yeah.
And he said to me one day, he was like, he didn't play with his words. He didn't miss his words at all. He was like, do you want me to treat you like the rest of the girls, or do you want me to treat you like an athlete?
Right.
And in my brain, like it was like one of those click aha moments where it's like, sometimes you have to really think about like, what are the people around you preparing you for?
Yeah.
And like, you could have let me do whatever I want, or you could really, really hone in, pour into, and prepare for me that way. And it might not feel the best.
Right.
But.
Yeah. Nah,
yeah.
We could talk all day on that,
know,
but
right?
This was dope, Britt. I definitely appreciate you. Definitely want to make sure, shout out to people. We'll have one last closing statement. If you could leave somebody with what, some type of inspiration, just like your closing statement. It could be what Fit Professional means to you, or anything. We'll close out with that. We'll shout you out, and then we'll kind of go into our interactive style of the show.
It's so crazy because I've heard you ask other people that.
Yeah, but you're on the spot.
I'm not even, now that I'm on the spot. But I would say the biggest thing is that, you have a choice every single day. What you decide to do with your time, what you decide to prioritize is going to turn into who you are. So we talked about discipline, we talked about sacrifice, we talked about choices, and just make sure that you're intentional with those so that you can be whoever you want to be and the best version of yourself.
There we go. There you have it. Another episode of the Fit Professional Podcast. Super dope guest today. One of my good friends, Brittany Powell. Make sure y'all follow her. We're going to put her information on the screen. Keep embodying what it means to be a fit professional. You're such an inspiration, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. And shout out to Sabri and Fit Professional. Get y'all some gear.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sure.
You definitely got, new gear coming, new stuff out now, and then we'll see y'all next time. All right, y'all. Peace.